He didn't just cheat on me. He built an entire second life behind my back. 4 years. I trusted him blindly, until one message destroyed everything. And what I did next ruined him completely. The first time I realized something was wrong, it wasn't because of a big dramatic moment. It was the silence. Not the comfortable kind we used to share on Sunday mornings, when sunlight slipped through the beige curtains and the smell of freshly brewed coffee filled our small kitchen. No, this silence was different. Heavy, suffocating, like something unspoken had settled between us and refused to leave. Ethan sat across from me at the breakfast table, scrolling through his phone, his face lit faintly by the screen. His coffee had gone cold, untouched. "Long day ahead?" I asked, forcing a light tone. He didn't look up. "Yeah, meetings." That was it. No details, no smile, no teasing comment like he used to make. "Miss me already?" I watched him carefully. The man sitting in front of me looked like my husband. Same sharp jawline, same deep brown eyes, same neatly pressed shirts. But something was off, and I couldn't explain it yet. We had been married for 7 years. 7 years of what I thought was love, stability, trust. Our home wasn't extravagant, but it was ours. A 2-bedroom apartment in a quiet neighborhood where the evenings smelled like rain and distant barbecue grills. The walls were decorated with framed photos, vacations, birthdays, small candid moments that once felt like proof of happiness. Now, they felt like evidence. Proof of something I didn't understand yet. Ethan used to be different. He used to come home and wrap his arms around me from behind while I cooked. He used to tell me about his day, every frustrating coworker, every small victory. He used to laugh, a real, deep laugh that made me laugh too. But over the past year, he had slowly started disappearing. Not physically at first. Emotionally, conversations became shorter. Eye contact became rare. Late nights at work became more frequent. At first, I told myself it was stress. Everyone goes through phases, right? But then came the lies. Small ones. Meeting ran late. I forgot my charger at the office. I was with Daniel. Harmless on their own. But together, they formed a pattern. And patterns don't lie. The first crack appeared on a rainy Thursday evening. I remember it vividly because the weather mirrored the unease in my chest. Ethan had texted me earlier, working late. "Don't wait up." So I didn't. I ordered takeout, curled up on the couch, and tried to distract myself with a movie I barely watched. The ticking of the wall clock felt louder than usual, each second stretching endlessly. By 11:47 p.m., something inside me snapped. Not anger. Instinct. I grabbed my keys. The city at night felt different. Streets glistened under streetlights, reflections dancing like illusions. My hands tightened around the steering wheel as I drove toward his office. I didn't know what I expected to find. Maybe nothing. Maybe everything. The building stood tall and dark, most floors already empty. Only a few windows glowed faintly. My heart pounded as I stepped inside. The security guard barely glanced at me. Late night. I forced a smile. Yeah, my husband forgot something. Lie. Or maybe not. Ethan's office floor was silent. Too silent. The kind of silence that echoes. His desk was empty. Chair pushed in. Computer off. No sign of him. A cold wave washed over me. If he wasn't here, then where was he? That night, I didn't confront him. When he came home at 1:30 a.m., I pretended to be asleep. But I wasn't. I listened carefully. His footsteps were soft, cautious, like someone trying not to wake a sleeping animal. He showered immediately. That was new. Ethan hated showering late at night. I kept my eyes closed, my breathing steady. But inside, everything was screaming. Days turned into weeks, and I started noticing everything. The way he angled his phone away from me. The way he smiled at texts he never shared. The way he started dressing better, even on casual days. It wasn't just suspicion anymore. It was certainty. But I didn't act. Not yet. Because I needed more than a feeling. I needed the truth. The truth came to me unexpectedly. On a Sunday afternoon, Ethan had left his laptop open on the dining table before rushing out to meet a client. I wasn't planning to snoop. At least, that's what I told myself. But then the notification popped up. A message. From a name I didn't recognize. "I miss you already. Last night was perfect, Red Heart." My stomach dropped. For a moment, I couldn't breathe. My fingers hovered over the trackpad. This was the moment. The line you cross and can never return from. Slowly, I clicked. The messages unfolded like a nightmare. Weeks, months, pictures, plans, promises, things he used to say to me, now written to someone else. Her name was Lena, and she wasn't new. She had been there for over a year. A whole year of lies. A whole year of betrayal. While I cooked for him. While I waited for him. While I loved him. But the worst part, it wasn't the cheating. It was the life he had built with her. Secret dinners. Weekend trips. Inside jokes. He wasn't just having an affair. He was living a double life. I sat there for what felt like hours. The apartment around me felt unfamiliar. Like I had stepped into someone else's life. The photos on the wall suddenly looked fake. The memories hollow. Tears blurred my vision, but I didn't let them fall. Not yet, because something inside me had shifted. Something cold. Something dangerous. When Ethan came home that evening, I greeted him with a smile. A real one. "Hey," I said softly. He looked surprised. "Hey, everything okay?" "Yeah," I replied, stepping closer, placing a gentle kiss on his cheek. His body tensed. Just for a second. But I noticed. I noticed everything now. That night, as he slept beside me, I stared at the ceiling. My mind wasn't broken. It was calculating. Piece by piece. Lie by lie. I wasn't going to scream. I wasn't going to cry in front of him. And I definitely wasn't going to leave quietly. No. If he had spent a year building a lie, I would spend however long it took to destroy it. Completely. Carefully. Brutally. Because Ethan thought I was just his wife. He had no idea I was about to become his worst mistake. The strange thing about betrayal is it doesn't always break you instantly. Sometimes it sharpens you. The next morning, everything looked exactly the same. Sunlight filtered through the curtains. The coffee machine hummed softly. The world outside moved as if nothing had changed. But inside me, everything had. I stood in the kitchen, stirring my coffee slowly, watching Ethan through the reflection in the microwave door. He was adjusting his tie, checking himself in the mirror like he always did. Perfect. Controlled. Untouchable. For a moment, I wondered how many mornings he had stood there after lying to me the night before. How many times had I smiled at him, completely unaware? The thought didn't make me cry anymore. It made me calm. Dangerously calm. "Big day today?" I asked, my voice light. He glanced at me, surprised by my tone. "Yeah, busy." Same word. Same lie. Different meaning now. I nodded. "Don't work too hard." A small smile appeared on his face, relieved. "I won't." But I saw it. That flicker in his eyes. Guilt. Fear. Or maybe just habit. As soon as he left, I didn't waste a second. His laptop was still on the dining table. This time I didn't hesitate. I opened it like someone opening a door they already knew led to darkness. I needed more than messages. I needed everything. Proof. Patterns. Weaknesses. If Ethan had built a double life, I was going to map every inch of it. The emails were worse than the messages. Reservations. Hotel bookings. Receipts. Trips he had told me were business conferences were actually weekends with her. Lena. Even her name started to feel like poison in my mouth. But I forced myself to stay focused. Emotion was a luxury I couldn't afford anymore. Then I found something unexpected. A folder. Hidden deep within his files. Password protected. My heart raced. This was it. This was where the real secrets lived. I stared at the screen, thinking. Ethan wasn't creative with passwords. I knew that. Birthdays. Anniversaries. Simple combinations. I tried a few. Wrong. Again. Wrong. Frustration started creeping in, but then I paused. And smiled. Because I remembered something. Something he used to say jokingly. "Everything important in my life revolves around you." Back when I believed him. I typed my own name. Enter. The folder opened. For a moment, I couldn't move. Inside were documents. Photos. Financial records. But it wasn't just about Lena. It was bigger. Much bigger. There were bank statements I had never seen before. Accounts I didn't know existed. Transactions that didn't make sense. Large sums of money moving in and out. And then I saw it. A property lease. Under Lena's name. But funded by Ethan. A second apartment. Not just a place for secret meetings. A home. My chest tightened. This wasn't an affair. This was a parallel life. A life where I didn't exist. I scrolled further, and that's when my hands started shaking. Not from sadness. From rage. There were documents about me. My name. My signature. Except, I hadn't signed anything. Insurance policies. Financial transfers. Legal papers. Forged. Carefully crafted. Like someone had been preparing something for a long time. A realization hit me, so hard it felt physical. Ethan wasn't just cheating. He was planning. Planning something that involved my money, my identity, my life. For the first time since I found out, I felt fear. Real fear. What was he trying to do? And how far had he already gone? But fear didn't last long. Because something stronger replaced it. Control. I grabbed my phone and started taking pictures. Every document. Every transaction. Every lie. If this was a game, I had just found his entire strategy. That afternoon, I did something Ethan would never expect. I went out, not to clear my head, but to prepare. The city felt different now. Sharper. Louder. More real. I noticed things I had ignored before. The distant sirens. The chatter of strangers. The hum of life moving forward without hesitation. I walked into a small cafe we used to visit years ago. It smelled the same, coffee and vanilla. But I wasn't here for nostalgia. I was here to think. I sat in the corner, pulling out my notebook. For the first time in my life, I started planning revenge. Not emotional revenge. Strategic revenge. Step 1, don't let him know. Step 2, gather everything. Step 3, find Lena. Because if Ethan had built a second life, she was part of it. And whether she knew about me or not, she had answers. But as I sat there, something unexpected happened. Doubt. Not about what he did, but about her. Was she just another victim? Or was she part of the lie? That question mattered, because it would decide everything. That evening, when Ethan came home, I was ready. Not as his wife, but as someone watching him closely. "Hey," he said, loosening his tie. "You look nice." I smiled softly. Just felt like it. He stepped closer, studying me. For a moment, I thought he sensed something. But then he relaxed. "Dinner smells good." Of course it did. I had made his favorite. Just like always. We sat at the table. And for the first time in months, we talked. Not really, but enough to make him comfortable. Enough to make him believe everything was normal. "Maybe we should take a trip," I said casually. He looked surprised. "A trip?" "Yeah. We haven't spent time together in a while." A pause. A calculation. Then a smile. "Yeah, that sounds good." Lie. But I smiled back. Good. Because I wasn't planning a trip. I was setting a trap. That night, as he slept beside me again, I didn't feel broken. I felt powerful. Because now, I knew everything. And he knew nothing. But the real question wasn't what he had done. It was how far I was willing to go. And deep down, I already knew the answer. There's a moment, right before everything changes, when the world feels eerily still. Like it's holding its breath. That's exactly how it felt the day I decided to meet Lena. I didn't rush into it. Revenge isn't about speed. It's about precision. For 2 days I studied her. Her social media. Her routines. Her patterns. Lena wasn't hiding. That was the first surprise. She posted pictures openly. Coffee dates, sunsets, little glimpses of a life that looked peaceful. Normal. There were no pictures of Ethan. But I recognized him anyway. In reflections. In shadows. In the small details only a wife would notice. A watch he never took off. A shirt I had bought him last winter. He was there. Just hidden enough to stay invisible. By the 3rd day, I knew exactly where to find her. A small art gallery downtown. She worked there. The building stood quietly between 2 modern offices, its exterior simple but elegant. Large glass windows displayed abstract paintings, bold strokes of color that somehow felt chaotic and controlled at the same time. Fitting. I took a deep breath before stepping inside. The air smelled faintly of paint and polished wood. Soft instrumental music played in the background. And there she was, Lena. She wasn't what I expected. Not overly glamorous. Not intimidating. Just real. Her hair was tied loosely, a few strands falling across her face. She wore a simple black dress, minimal makeup, and an expression that was calm, almost gentle. For a second, I just stood there. Because this woman had been living in the shadows of my marriage for a year. "Hi, welcome," she said warmly, walking toward me. "Let me know if you need any help." Her voice was soft, kind. It almost made me angry. I forced a polite smile. "Actually, I was hoping to talk to you." She tilted her head slightly. "About a piece?" "No," I said quietly. "About Ethan." The change in her expression was instant. Not shock, recognition. The silence that followed was heavy, thick, unavoidable. "I think you should close early today," I added, my voice steady. For a moment, she didn't move. Then, slowly, she nodded. An hour later, we were sitting across from each other in a quiet cafe a few blocks away. The kind of place where conversations stayed private, where truths could be spoken without interruption. Neither of us spoke at first. We just looked at each other. Two women, connected by the same man, but standing on completely different sides of the truth. Finally, she broke the silence. "You're his wife," she said. Not a question. A statement. I nodded. "And you're Lena." She exhaled slowly, looking down at her hands. "I didn't think," she started, then stopped. "Didn't think what?" I asked calmly. "That he'd let this happen." A bitter smile touched my lips. "You mean that I'd find out?" Her eyes met mine. "Yes." There was no denial, no pretending, just honesty. And somehow that made it worse. "How long?" I asked. Her fingers tightened slightly. "A little over a year." I already knew that, but hearing it out loud, it still hurt. "And you knew about me?" I asked. This time she hesitated. That was all the answer I needed. "Yes," she admitted quietly. Something inside me snapped. Not loudly, not violently, just cleanly, like a thread finally breaking. "And that didn't stop you?" I asked. My voice wasn't raised, but it was sharp. She looked up, her eyes filled with something I didn't expect. Not guilt, not exactly. Something more complicated. "You think I'm the villain here," she said softly. "Aren't you?" I replied. She shook her head slowly. "No, I think we both are in different ways." I let out a small, humorless laugh. "That's convenient." "You don't understand," she said, leaning forward slightly. "He told me you were separated." I froze. "What?" I whispered. "He said you stayed together for financial reasons," she continued. "That the marriage was over, just not legally." The room suddenly felt too small, too tight. Another lie, another layer. "And you believed him?" I asked. Her expression faltered. "At first, yes." "At first," I pressed. She looked away. "I found out the truth months ago. That hit harder than anything else." "You knew," I said slowly. "And you stayed." She closed her eyes briefly. "Yes." Silence fell again. But this time, it was different. Because now, I wasn't just looking at the woman who took part in my husband's betrayal. I was looking at someone who had made a choice. A conscious one. "Why?" I asked. Her answer came quietly. "Because I loved him." I stared at her, searching for something. Anything. "And now?" I asked. She hesitated, and in that hesitation, I saw it. Doubt. Cracks. "I don't know," she admitted. That's when I realized something important. Something powerful. This wasn't as simple as I thought. Lena wasn't just part of Ethan's lie. She was trapped in it too. But unlike me, she had chosen to stay, and that made her dangerous. "Did he tell you about the apartment?" I asked suddenly. Her eyes widened slightly. "Yes." "And the money?" I added. Confusion crossed her face. "What money?" I leaned back slowly, watching her carefully. "You don't know," I murmured. "Know what?" she asked, tension creeping into her voice. And there it was, the moment everything shifted. Because Lena didn't know everything. Not even close. Which meant Ethan had been lying to both of us, in completely different ways. A slow smile formed on my lips. For the first time since this started, I wasn't reacting. I was leading. "Looks like," I said softly, "you're not the only one he's been deceiving." Her expression changed. Fear. Real fear. "What are you talking about?" she asked. I stood up, leaving money on the table. If you want the truth, I said, looking down at her, you'll meet me again. When? She asked quickly. Tomorrow, I replied. Because trust me. I paused, letting the weight of my words sink in. You're going to want to hear this. As I walked away, I felt something I hadn't felt in a long time. Not pain, not anger, power. Because now, this wasn't just my revenge. It was a war, and Ethan had no idea. He was about to lose everything. The next day didn't feel real. It felt like the calm before a storm so violent it would leave nothing standing. I chose the place carefully, not too public, not too private. A quiet business lounge on the top floor of a hotel, glass walls, muted lighting, and a view of the city that made everything below look small, insignificant, just like Ethan was about to become. I arrived early, not because I was nervous, but because I needed control. Every detail mattered now. Where we sat, what she saw first, how the truth unfolded. Lena arrived exactly on time. Of course she did. She was that kind of person, organized, composed, trying to hold on to control even when everything was slipping. But the moment she saw my face, she knew. Something had changed. You said I'd want to hear this, she said, sitting down across from me. Her voice was steady, but her hands weren't. I didn't respond immediately. Instead, I placed a folder on the table. Slowly, deliberately. What is this? She asked. Your reality, I replied. For a second, she didn't move. Then, with a deep breath, she opened it. I watched her carefully, because this moment, this was where everything shifted. Her eyes scanned the first page, confusion, then the second, concern, then the third, and that's when it hit. What is this? She whispered, her voice cracking. Bank statements, I said calmly. Transfers, accounts, properties. Her hands trembled as she flipped through the pages faster, desperation creeping in. No, this doesn't make sense. Look closer, I said, and then she saw it. Her name, on documents she had never signed. Her breathing became uneven. He told me the apartment was a gift, she said almost to herself. I leaned forward slightly. And you believed him? Her eyes snapped up to mine. He said it was his money, she insisted. A cold smile touched my lips. It is his money. I paused. Or at least, it was supposed to be. What does that mean? She demanded. I slid another document toward her, slower this time, letting the weight of it settle before she even read it. This, I said quietly, is an insurance policy. She looked down, and everything inside her seemed to collapse at once. Because there it was, clear, undeniable. My name, my forged signature, a life insurance policy worth more than anything Ethan had ever owned. And Lena, listed as the beneficiary. The silence that followed was deafening. No, she whispered, shaking her head. No, that's not possible. But it is, I said. My voice didn't shake, didn't crack, because I had already processed this. She hadn't. He told me that you were moving away, she stammered. That everything was handled legally. Did it look legal? I asked sharply. She couldn't answer. Because now, she saw it. This isn't just cheating, I continued. This is fraud. I leaned in closer. And if things had gone the way he planned, I let the sentence hang. Her eyes widened in horror. He was going to ruin me, I finished. The color drained from her face. And you, I added quietly, you were going to be the one who benefited from it. I didn't know, she said quickly, panic rising in her voice. I swear I didn't know any of this. For a moment, I believed her, not because I trusted her, but because the fear in her eyes was real, raw, unfiltered. You knew enough, I said. You knew he was married. She flinched. And you stayed anyway. Silence. Heavy. Unavoidable. I thought, she started, her voice breaking. I thought he was going to leave you. I let out a quiet laugh. Bitter. Sharp. That's the thing about men like Ethan, I said. They don't leave. I leaned back. They replace. Her hands dropped to her lap. Defeated. For the first time since we met, Lena looked small. So what happens now? She asked. I studied her. Carefully. Because this was the moment that would decide everything. Revenge wasn't just about destruction. It was about choice. I can go to the police, I said. And I will. Her head snapped up. But, I added, there's another option. Hope flickered in her eyes. Dangerous. Fragile. What option? She asked. I leaned forward, my voice low, controlled. We take him down together. The words hung in the air between us. You want me to help you? She asked slowly. I want you to help yourself, I corrected. Because if I go down, I tilted my head slightly. You go down with me. Her breath caught. And if you think he'll protect you, I smiled faintly. You don't know him as well as you think. She looked down at the documents again, at the evidence, at the lies, and I could see it happening. The shift, the moment she stopped being his partner and started becoming his problem. What do you need me to do? She asked finally. And just like that, the game changed. That night, I returned home before Ethan. The apartment felt different again, but this time, it didn't feel like a prison. It felt like a stage. When he walked in, everything was normal. Or at least, it looked normal. Hey, he said, loosening his tie. Hey, I replied softly. He smiled, careless, unaware. And for the first time since this began, I smiled back, not as his wife, but as the woman who was about to destroy him. Because now, I had everything. Proof, a witness, a plan. And Ethan, he was still living in his perfect little lie. He had no idea that the two women he thought he controlled had just joined forces, and when the truth finally came out, it wouldn't just hurt him, it would end him. There's a specific kind of silence that exists right before everything collapses. Not the calm kind, not the peaceful kind, but the kind that feels final. That's what the apartment felt like that night. Still, heavy, waiting. Ethan stood in front of the mirror, adjusting his cufflinks, completely unaware that this would be the last normal moment of his life. You look nice, he said casually, glancing at me. I smiled faintly. So do you. And for a second, I almost mourned him. Not the man he was, but the man I thought he had been. Big dinner tonight? I asked. He nodded. Yeah. Investors. Important for work. Lie. But I let it pass. Just like I had for years. Good, I said softly. I'm glad. Because tonight, everything was going to end. The plan had been set in motion hours ago. Lena had done her part perfectly. Every message, every call, every step. She had played her role like someone desperate for redemption. And maybe that's exactly what she was. Ethan grabbed his keys. Don't wait up. I walked closer, stopping just inches away from him. For a moment, he hesitated, like something inside him sensed the shift. Then I kissed his cheek. Gentle, familiar, final. Good luck, I whispered. He left. And just like that, the countdown began. The restaurant he had lied about was exactly where I knew it would be. Not a business dinner, not investors, just him, and the life he thought he could keep hidden forever. But tonight, there would be no hiding. I arrived 10 minutes later. Not alone. The building was elegant. Dim lights, soft music, expensive taste. The kind of place where secrets felt safe, where powerful men believed they were untouchable. They were wrong. Inside, everything was already in place. A few tables away, unnoticed, sat the people Ethan feared the most. Legal investigators, financial authorities, and someone he never expected to see again. Lena. She looked different. Not softer, not conflicted, but resolved. Our eyes met briefly. No words, just understanding. This was it. Ethan sat at the table, relaxed, confident, smiling as he spoke. And across from him, another woman. Not Lena. Someone new. For a moment, even I felt something twist inside me. Not pain. Not jealousy. Confirmation. He hadn't just been living two lives. He had been collecting them. Ready? One of the investigators asked quietly. I nodded. And then, everything moved at once. Ethan Carter! The voice cut through the room like a blade. He froze. Slowly he turned around, confusion flickering across his face. Then he saw them. The badges, the documents, the people standing behind me. And finally, he saw me. For a moment, he didn't react. Like his brain refused to process what was happening. What is this? He stammered, standing up. I stepped forward. Calm. Controlled. The truth, I said. His eyes darted between me and Lena. And that's when it hit him. You, he whispered, looking at her. She didn't flinch. You lied to both of us, she said quietly. Panic started creeping into his voice. No, this isn't what it looks like. Forgery, one of the officials interrupted. Fraud. Financial manipulation. Each word landed like a hammer. You're under investigation. No! Ethan snapped, his composure finally breaking. This is a mistake. She's lying. They're both lying. I tilted my head slightly. Am I? I asked softly. I placed the final document on the table. The insurance policy. His face drained of color. Because he knew. There was no way out of this. You were going to destroy me, I said quietly, my voice steady. But you forgot something. He looked at me, desperate now. I trusted you. Silence. And that was your biggest mistake. The officers stepped forward. Everything after that happened fast. Too fast. Hands on his shoulders. Voices raised. Chairs moving. Eyes watching. Ethan struggled. Argued. Denied. But it didn't matter. Because the truth doesn't need permission to destroy someone. As they led him away, he looked at me one last time. Not with love. Not with regret. But with something else. Fear. And for the first time, he understood. He hadn't lost control tonight. He had lost everything. The restaurant slowly returned to normal. Whispers faded. People looked away. Life moved on. Just like it always does. Lena walked toward me. For a moment, neither of us spoke. It's over, she said quietly. I nodded, but it didn't feel like victory. Not completely. Because revenge doesn't give you back what you lost. It just makes sure no one else can take it again. What will you do now? She asked. I looked out the window. At the city lights. At the life waiting beyond all this. I'll start over, I said softly. And this time, I meant it. Because I wasn't the same woman who had sat at that breakfast table weeks ago. I wasn't the wife who ignored the silence. The woman who trusted without question. That version of me, she was gone. In her place was someone stronger, sharper, unbreakable. Ethan had spent years building a perfect lie, and in the end, it only took one truth to destroy it.